echelons or the lower echelons. Go ahead. Emmanuel Levinas.
And in fact, here he says, his response, that election is indeed a hardship. But what is it? What is that? So it's a beautiful chapter called Nameless, and he talks. Essentially, it's about what does diaspora mean, and he talks about the fact that the Jewish condition is now, as a result of of this nomadic existence of the diaspora, it is now constituted within humanity. Judaism is humanity on the brink of morality without institutions. And it becomes a way, and it becomes a message. And you can even, in a sense,
Judaism's a pylon project for humanity.
But by a strange election, they are a people conditioned and situated among the nations in such a way, quote, is this metaphysics or sociology? Interesting point. That is liable to find itself overnight and without forewarning in the wretchedness of its exile, its desert, ghetto, or concentration camp, all the splendors of life swept away like tinsel, the temple in flames, the prophets without vision, reduced to an immorality that is belied by the universe. A people exposed, even in the most peaceful of times, to anti-Semitic remarks, because they are a people capable of discerning in such remarks a hiss beyond the range of common hearing. It's not just an insult, but it's recognized what that threat means to humanity and universal ethics. And already a chilling wind sweeps through the still decent or luxurious rooms, tearing down tapestries and pictures, putting out the lights, cracking the walls, reducing clothing to rags, and bringing with it the screaming and howling of ruthless crowds. Anti-Semitic language unlike any others. Is it an insult like other insults? No, it is an exterminating language, causing the good, which glorified in being, to return to unreality and crouch at the bottom of a subjectivity, chilled to the bone and trembling. A language that reveals to all humanity, through the intermediary of a people chosen to hear it, a nihilistic devastation no other discourse could evoke. That election is indeed a hardship. But that condition is, of course, the transformation of civilization. That is the future, and as he points out, that the counterpart to the desert and this dispersion is the construction of a new habitation, the 4 cubits of halacha, that precarious divine abode.
So how does all this universalism and spiritual redemptive hope fit in now that we've got a very particular land once again under Jewish sovereignty, and so we're back in the particular and the national? You're talking about transforming from the national.
I believe that is
and the particular.
That is a challenge. There are many positions exactly taken from that. So again, I mentioned that Yisrael Eldad condemns. He takes, I mean, semi-jokingly, I think.
Yeah.
But he attacks Rav Yochanan ben Zakkai.
Yeah.
And the Talmud. And there are those. I had this experience back in the early days of the Gush Emunim where people would say, you American Jews, you're not really Jews because God only exists in the land of Israel, etc. A sort of repudiation of the last 2,000 years of Jewish theology.
Yes.
In favor of what they believe to be a truer, earlier theology. This fantasy of Tanakh and of living that ancient time. It's always a Nietzschean kind of imagery of going back to the sword. So these are exactly the questions. When I was joking before about right versus left in Israeli politics, or that is the theological question. That's where the Melchiors, the Rav Amital, all that. This is where the questions are asked. What of this tradition is an evolution, and what is a step backwards? I think there were those who wanted no end to diaspora at all. Right? We know about that extreme, and then there are those on the extreme national side, and all this needs to answer to 2,000 years of text.
Right, because we've had 2,000 years of living in the text, because for 2,000 years we couldn't live in the land and run our own land. We've had to live in the text.
Can I as a kind of an end reading? I'm really enjoying, like, this to me is Tisha B'Av. It's like taking the voice of these sort of Holocaust-related writings to me.
Yeah.
And to me, it's still hard to not draw a line from this point to this point and see them as connected, much as Levinas did here.
Yeah.
The temple in flames.
Yeah.
So I love this passage. So it's also from the Theses on the Philosophy of History. So a Klee painting named Angelus Novus shows an angel looking as though he's about to move away from something he's fixedly contemplating. It's a great painting. I wish I could show you. You could look it up on the internet. His eyes are staring, his mouth is open, his wings are spread. This is how one pictures the angel of history. His face is turned toward the past. Where we perceive a chain of events, he sees one single catastrophe which keeps piling wreckage upon wreckage and hurls it in front of his feet. The angel would like to stay, awaken the dead, and make whole what has been smashed. But a storm is blowing from paradise. It has got caught in his wings with such violence that the angel can no longer close them. This storm irresistibly propels him into the future to which his back is turned, while the pile of debris before him grows skyward. This storm is what we call progress.
That's Walter Benjamin. Theses on philosophy
Of history.
of history. And so our Torah portion this week is Devarim, which is the opening chapters of the book of Deuteronomy. It's the 5th book of the Torah. It reads completely differently than the other 4 books. Prior to the book of Deuteronomy, Moses was a character, and there's like an omniscient narrator. Now we move into a book where it's one long farewell speech by Moses to the Israelites, and Moses is very angry with the Israelites. That comes through again and again. He blames them for him not getting into the Holy Land. He blames them for needing to send spies to check out the Holy Land. Moses is an angry, bitter, dying old man here.
I don't know if you need that's a reading. I think there may be another message, and I think that's why one of the reasons that this parsha is always linked to this, to Tisha B'Av, and that is, again, remember what Moshe is doing is he's recounting history. So it's that same idea, the same concept that we try to do when we remember the dead and recall their suffering. So he is transforming history into into one of meaning. And so, they always talk about this, that this is his, the Rav Tzadok, the same person who talked about the continuity of this messianic spirit in every generation.
Rav Tzadok is a 19th century Hasidic sage.
The one I quoted before.
Yes.
So he also says that. It says Ve'ela Dvarim, that he says that it's not that Moses spoke then, but those words are continuously being spoken. It's in the present tense. And I also quoted teaching that from the Sfat Emet, and actually Franz Rosenzweig says it later, is that Tochacha has an important word in it.
Reproof.
That's what it means. But within the word Tochacha is the word Nocheach, which means present, or presence. So, in a sense, in that, when Moshe is speaking these words of critique, it's also, he's there. It is, these are statements that are given to the people live. It's not a summary of history. It is being present in history.
Yeah. Yeah, there's an immediacy. You do feel Deuteronomy does have